So what are some transferable skills though that you used from acting and your TikToks that you now use in your work of Whatculture?
Hi guys, I'm Adam Wilborn from Whatculture.
And I'm Andy Murray from Whatculture, and you're watching Tom Talks Rubbish.
Subscribe below.
What's going on, guys? It's your boy, Tom Talks Rubbish, and stand back for another interview. This time, I'm joined by Ellie Littlechild from Whatculture. So welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
So if we take this back, what came first, your passion for content creating or your passion for acting?
Acting, 100% acting. This is a fairly new territory for me, actually. I've only been doing this properly since January. So acting was what my path was way before this even came along.
Fair enough. So what was the thing that bit you with the acting bug? Was it watching a film? Was it basically, what was it? I shouldn't lead the question.
No, so really, when I was a child, I was really, really shy. I wouldn't ask strangers for things. So I basically just started a local stage school just to build confidence. Nothing to do with wanting to perform, literally just so that I could talk to people without hiding behind my mum's leg. Mm-hmm. So I joined that just for a confidence building. But then as I started to kind of get into it a bit more, I started to think, oh, this acting thing's kind of fun. Plus, I love to dress up, and that's a very big part of acting. So I started there, and then I started to enjoy it a bit more. So then I started pursuing it kind of at school, doing it GCSE, then at college, did it at A-level. Then I studied it at university, and then obviously lockdown happened. So I kind of struggled a little bit, and this kind of fell into my lap as a result of that.
So how does Whatculture, in your own words, fall into your lap?
Well, I say it falls into your lap. It doesn't fall into your lap, but I was working in a pub, just a local pub. I started working there when I left school, so when I was 16, and I was still working there at Christmas last year. I mean, I'd gone to uni and stuff, but I always kind of ended up back there. And I was like, do you know what? I need to move on from here. This is my safety blanket, but until I just bite the bullet and find a career, I'm never going to leave this pub. So I just started looking, but obviously at this point I did have an agent, but I wasn't really getting any acting work. So I was like, well, what can I do that's still within that field, but isn't so difficult to do? So I just was searching, and the job advert just came up. It was specifically, it said Whoculture, which is what drew me in. I was like, this is perfect for me. I just invested in some recording equipment just to kind of give it a go, because it was lockdown, and why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And so I just thought, well, I've got the equipment. I can invest in more high-tech stuff if I'm successful. So I literally just sent them my CV, a cover letter, linked my TikTok channel, just because it's the first time I thought I can use TikTok to my advantage here, rather than going, I don't want them to ever find it. So I just applied. They clearly liked what they saw. They asked me to do an audition tape or a little sample tape. They sent me an article, said present the first 2 pages. I did that, and they gave me the job.
Basically. Something, fair enough. Something you brought up that I do find very interesting is you talked about your TikTok channel almost hiding it from the world.
Yeah.
So are you the same with content creating now? Are you like, if you're down the pub and say your friends find out that you're doing stuff for Whatculture, are you like, hide me, I don't want people to know?
I think this for me is a big step in the direction I want to be going in, and obviously acting is a career that people are going to see. But to me, this is a more professional thing to be doing than filming TikToks in your bedroom, and that's the difference. So the TikToks that I was filming was in lockdown. I just needed to pass some time. I didn't want to stop kind of practicing that art of performing. So I was kind of taking it quite seriously, actually,
Yeah.
doing lots of lip syncs to different scenes from various things, just to kind of keep up that skill, remove the element of voice just to give myself a bit of a challenge. But that was me standing in my bedroom, and to anybody else was probably quite funny and embarrassing. Whereas this is a job.
Yeah, I get you. So
Yeah.
I definitely get you. So what are some transferable skills though that you used from acting and your TikToks that you now use in your work of Whatculture?
Well, you definitely need to have some sort of kind of presence, camera presence. You know, you've got to kind of engage with your audience. And it took me a little while to kind of get into that. To start with, I mean, I guess if you went back and watched some of my earlier videos that I did with probably Whoculture to start with, they were presented a lot kind of in a different way, because I was new to it and it took a lot of practice to get into it. And I obviously had that skill of like memorizing lines. So my way of presenting is I don't read off of an auto cue. If I'm looking at the camera, I've memorized what I'm saying rather than reading it from an auto cue, because I think you can tell when someone's reading
a script almost.
Yeah. So I essentially do read from a script. So when I do the voiceovers, I am reading the article, and I've got a lot better at sight reading, which is a really good skill to have anyway. But particularly for an actor, sight reading is a very good skill to have under your belt.
For people that may not know, what is sight reading?
Oh, sorry. Sight reading is basically just, I can present the article without having ever looked at it. So I can just read it out loud and can near enough do it in one go without knowing what it's going to say beforehand. So it's quite good. So it's kind of a skill you can learn just by reading a book out loud, just to kind of help yourself read something and it sounds natural without you having to keep going back and rehearsing it, essentially.
Yeah, fair enough. So then with your work with Whatculture, what area would you say that you're currently working on are you most passionate about?
Definitely the Whoculture. Doctor Who is what drew me to the job in the first place. It's the thing that I know the most about across all the channels. It's probably the one that I'm primarily the kind of main person for, the main presenter for. The channel itself is a lot smaller than Trek Culture or the main channel. I mean, we're getting there, but at the moment we're in a bit of a dry spell. There's not a lot of Doctor Who to cover. But and I originally only worked on Whoculture because I kind of started working with them probably around this time last year. But it was on a really kind of, we'll give you them when we've got the articles. There's no rush. I mean, it's still essentially the case, but it was kind of, I think I did about 6 articles between July and December. It wasn't until January when I said to them, look, can I start with you a little bit more permanently so I can stop working at the pub and focus all of my energy into this. And that's when they then transferred me over to Trek Culture and more so on the main channel as well. Whereas a Trek, I mean, I'm getting there with Trek, but I didn't know masses about it beforehand.
How does it feel to create content? Because were you a Trek fan before you started creating the content for it?
Well, so I'd seen, my mum was a big fan of The Next Generation. So growing up, we watched The Next Generation here and there, but I wouldn't be able to tell you everything that happened in every episode, or, you know, I was aware of it and I had seen parts of it. And some Christmases, you know, mum gets out the box set of DVDs of like the films and she's like, let's watch these. So, you know, I had seen parts of it and I am watching them now and going, oh, I remember this episode, or I remember what's going to happen here. But I didn't know masses about it, and there's still a lot that I haven't seen yet that I'm making my way through.
Fair enough. But how do you feel like, because a conversation I had with Josh Brown from Whatculture Gaming was he would struggle to create content for something he wasn't massively passionate about. So how do you feel like your content's affected by not being massively passionate about the Trek stuff?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess that kind of comes into the acting part a little bit as well, because the whole part of acting is pretending to be in a situation that isn't real. So I think part of that comes from, I can absolutely make out like I am 100% confident in what I'm talking about, even if I haven't got a clue. but also a lot of it comes from there's such a really supportive team behind Trek culture particularly. So obviously Trek has a lot of names and characters and species and things that are very specific, and if you pronounce them wrong, people will tell you. And so I'm very, very lucky that particularly Sean is always on hand if I ever don't know how to say something. He's literally just a text away and he will reply instantly and help me out with that. But I do think as well that even though I didn't know lots about it before, I feel like by doing the job, I now have developed a passion for it.
Yeah.
I definitely find myself, like we're watching The Next Generation at the moment, and I do find myself going, oh, I want to watch the next episode. It's just obviously there's a lot of content to get through if you haven't started when it first came out.
Fair enough. No, it's just something I was really curious about because I'd had different conversations with different people, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So with the acting, are you still pursuing it, or is it the sort of thing where you've settled into Whatculture and that's maybe gone on the back burner?
No, I mean, acting is still what I want to do. It's still my passion, definitely. I do feel like, obviously, this is definitely a step in the right direction for me. It's kind of giving me an audience. It's putting my face out there. It's hopefully attracting attention from the right people. But it is very much kind of just a stepping stone. I mean, I obviously put 100% into what I'm doing and I really enjoy it. And it's definitely a wonderful job to have. I mean, I think a lot of people would love to have a job where they can work from home and be very flexible and, you know, read articles for a living. But yeah, acting is definitely still what I want to do. But this is definitely helping me build up more of a reputation, I suppose, that hopefully will draw people to want to then hire me as an actor.
I get you. So I'm trying to phrase this question so you don't get into trouble. Do you know what I mean? Like, so if you got offered an acting role tomorrow, would you hand your notice in at Whatculture, or would it be?
So Whatculture, I am hired on a freelance contract.
Okay, that explains a lot.
The beauty of working in this job, and one of the reasons that I'm so grateful to be able to do it, is that because it works on a freelance basis, I am able to put all my effort into this, and should an opportunity come up for me in the acting world, I am not obligated in any way to Whatculture, in as much as I don't have deadlines necessarily unless it's something specific. So if I said to them, look, I've just been offered this job, so it might take me a little bit longer to get these articles completed, that's not an issue. And that's why it's such a wonderful job to have, because it means I can pursue the acting career for as long as I want and as hard as I want. And this job will still be there once that acting gig is done.
Fair enough. You talked about the pandemic. How much were you pursuing the acting during the pandemic?
So I actually was very lucky that I managed to sign with my agent during the pandemic, which was very, very lucky. I graduated from uni in 2019. So I hadn't really been out of uni very long before it all happened. Yeah. My plan was always initially to kind of work a little bit in the pub, which I knew I had the safety of, to kind of build up, just earn a little bit of money, kind of put the feelers out, kind of start applying to agents. But obviously agents aren't easy to just come by, especially if you're just fresh out of uni. I didn't go to drama school, I went to university. So that obviously was a little bit of an issue as well. Not an issue, but it was kind of not as easy then to find an agent. You don't really have anything to show for yourself. And so I was very lucky that I did manage to sign with my agent during the pandemic. But obviously the pandemic hurt even the most successful actors, let alone the ones who have nothing to show for themselves. So it's kind of slowly building up, but it's by no means back on track.
Were you doing auditions during the pandemic?
No. So, well, I auditioned for a drama class, like a drama course, which initially was going to be in person and then had to be over Zoom. So I auditioned for that, but I did one audition. I suppose I'm allowed to say this now, seeing as it's basically nearly out. I auditioned for the new Game of Thrones prequel.
Oh,
yeah. This bed's got cat hair on it. That's nice. Yeah, so I did audition for that, and that was something that I actually came by without my agent. That was before I signed with my agent. that was pure luck that fell into my lap. Clearly I did not get the part. But I think other than that, that's really the only thing I managed to audition for then. But there weren't really many opportunities during lockdown.
If you were, because I've spoken to a few people, friends of mine that act on the side a little bit and what have you, and they said how hard auditioning was during the pandemic because you had to basically do what we're doing now, which is audition over Zoom or record something and send it to people. Do you think you would have been able to do something like that? Or are you someone that has to act in front of people to get your, for lack of a better phrase, mojo going?
No, I honestly, I quite like this self-tape way of doing it. I think it saves
self-tape. That was the word I was looking for. Thank you.
I mean, the job that I'm doing now essentially is self-taping every single day. Whenever there's a face-to-cam presenting, that's essentially what I've done. I've set up a green screen, I've set up a camera, I'm talking to a camera, which is basically what self-taping is. I think self-tapes are good in as much as for a first round of auditions, it saves a lot of money and a lot of time and things from both sides, from the auditionee and the casting directors that are auditioning you, because there's so many people in that first round of actors that they're going to be looking at, that it saves so much money by them just doing it from home rather than traveling somewhere, paying all that money to get the train or to hire out a room to do the auditions in. But I do think that I'm one of those people that the less I perform in front of an audience, the confidence goes. And so I have kind of fell into that safety of everything I do now is to a camera with no one around me, which I guess doesn't maybe push me as much as I need to be pushed.
Fair. Yeah, I get what you mean. Fair enough. So with the acting and stuff, and did we cover what skills you've learned from Whatculture that you might translate into acting? Yeah,
we did a little bit. We touched a little bit on like kind of the energy with the camera and kind of.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So, sorry. Continue.
Right. Well, that was basically it. Sight reading.
Yeah. So, who has been like you talked about someone at Whatculture, who has been like your massive mentor when it comes to the video side of it?
It's always been Sean, actually. Sean has been massively helpful in every aspect. He's, I think before I started properly, in fact, yeah, when I first got offered the job, they organized a Zoom meeting with Sean, and I spoke to Sean before I even did my first presenting job with them. And he basically just gave me a little bit of a breakdown of what the job entails and what's expected and how we do things. And then obviously once I started working with them more full time, for lack of a better phrase, he's absolutely been the one that's fully helped me with everything I need help with.
Mm-hmm. So as we look at wrapping this up, because I do want to be respectful of your time, we're going to go into a segment now that I call generic questions. So this is where these are like rapid fire questions that I'm sure Ellie will get asked on social media every day, or as her brand grows, I'm sure she will get asked on social media. So now she'll have a place to be like, look, dudes, I've answered this. Please go watch this. So favorite acting role you've had?
My favorite acting role that I have had. Do you know what? I did a little play at university that my housemate wrote, and I played a character called Julie Brown. And she was a proper busybody, snooty, she was a cow. And I absolutely loved playing her because I'm not like that at all. And it was just absolutely wonderful playing her.
It sounds a lot like the expression wrestling fans use is they love playing the bad guy because that's nothing like them. Sounds a lot like that.
Absolutely. It was brilliant. And I was acting with my friends as well, which just made it even better.
Favorite movie of all time?
One of my all-time favorite films is Atonement.
Ooh, I've never heard of that. So what is that?
Atonement. It's James McAvoy and Keira Knightley. And it's set during kind of Dunkirk time in the war. It's a bit of a love story. I don't necessarily watch for the love story. I watch it because I love wartime films. There's a shot in the middle of the film. It's like a 5-minute single continuous shot on Dunkirk beach, which I just think is beautiful cinematography. And I just really like it. It's a really good film.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
Not a very cheerful film.
No. Favorite TV show of all time?
Well, part of me wants to say Doctor Who because I don't want to lose my job. But I recently started watching Ted Lasso, and let me tell you, I honestly thought that I wouldn't like it because I just generally thought it was going to be about football, which doesn't really bother me that much. I started watching it, and it's just so much more than just about football. It's absolutely wonderful. I love it.
What is an acting role that I don't suppose you passed on many acting roles, but what is one that maybe you've passed on that you now look back and are like, oh, I wish I'd taken that?
Oh, that's a good question. Like you said, I haven't had very many opportunities to turn down.
Yeah, that wasn't supposed to be rude. I do apologize.
No, you're completely right though. Like, my career hasn't really taken off in the direction I want it to at the moment. So that is very good. I tell you what, when I was at school, I auditioned for the school plays, and one year they did Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and I was just cast as an Oompa Loompa, and then I decided that because I was only an Oompa Loompa, I wasn't going to do it. And
did the diva in you come out a little bit?
The diva in me, because I've been doing stage school at the same time, and I've been getting lead roles at stage school, which was a lot smaller and not at school. And the school plays at my school were really big; they were a big thing. And I kind of had this little bit of an ego, like, well, I'm only an Oompa Loompa, so I'm not going to bother. And I kind of wished that I had done that, because the following 2 years I got really big parts in the school plays.
And I bet that was stressful as hell.
Yes.
And then what is an acting role that maybe you watch now to study quite regularly?
So recently I've been watching Hannah Waddingham as Rebecca Welton in Ted Lasso. And I think that she is wonderful in that. And I really like that she's so down to earth just as a person in general. She's not someone who's had a career as a child and grown up, or has had a career, but she's someone who's kind of in her mid-40s and is only now kind of embracing that stardom, if you like, and still has humanity. And obviously I would not be able to not say Alex Kingston, because she is my all-time favourite actor of all time. So
that was the question I was just going to ask you.
There you go.
Okay. And then
Alex
what is a show currently airing that you're like, if I got offered a part in that tomorrow, I'd be satisfied. It doesn't matter what part it is. Do you know what I mean?
Ted Lasso.
Okay.
Ted Lasso.
Fair enough.
Absolutely.
And then as we look at wrapping this up, Ellie, I do want to say thank you for coming on. But the question I end all my videos on is, with YouTube, with podcasting, with social media in general, we're all sort of going to live forever in some sort of weird way. So what is one of your YouTube videos that you want the good people to check out? And then what is one that you're like, don't go back and watch that? I've grown a lot since then. And then what is one of your acting roles that might be on film that you feel the same way about, if that makes sense?
Yeah, okay. So I think one of the ones that I would like people to maybe see is the one that I wrote as well as presented, because that's one that I didn't just get given the words to learn and recite. It was one that the words were mine, which is a Whatculture video about River's song. I think it's something like 8 reasons why River's song has to come back, or something along those lines. But I was really proud of it because it was the first article that I'd written that had been published, and then I was able to kind of put more energy into what I was saying because it was my own words. I'd probably say maybe don't go back and watch my very first one that I presented with Whatculture, because it's probably not so good anymore. So,
Fair enough.
I've grown a lot as a presenter since then. I'm starting to kind of get a little bit more free to kind of change the words slightly. At first, I was really like, I've got to stick to the words that are in front of me. So
was that your acting training as well? Like, because you've obviously read scripts. You don't want to say it
wrong. Yeah. And so acting roles are quite different, because sometimes they'll give you freedom to change the lines if you don't think it's quite right. And some of them, like, you've got to stick to the script. And I didn't want to do an injustice to the person who'd written the words. by changing them. But since then, I've learned from other presenters and the editors and just the people at Whatculture in general that it is okay to kind of make it feel more personal to me when I'm presenting it, to sound more natural coming from me. As long as I don't completely change what the article says, it doesn't really matter as long as it's confident. Try to think what actor roles are on film. I mean, I've posted a few like little monologues and little projects on my YouTube channel, which I think is just Ellie Littlechild. I could be wrong, but I think that's what it is. But a lot of the jobs that I've done aren't really on film because there'll be university projects or things like that. I mean, I did a really, really cringy anti-bullying film when I was younger, which was like I guess it was an amateur film, but I guess it was a real film. But thank the Lord, I don't think that anyone's going to be able to find that anywhere.
Okay. So as we look at wrapping this up, where can the good people find you and your content?
So you can definitely find me across all the Whatculture channels: Whatculture, Who Culture, Trek Culture, Whatculture Horror, although that's mostly voiceover, and then Twitter and Instagram and TikTok. Generally, if you just search Ellie Littlechild, you'll find me because there aren't many Ellie Littlechilds in the world.
Fair enough. It's well worth doing, guys. I could see in about 5 years' time watching a film and seeing Ellie in it playing a role. So I really think you guys should check out her work because she's amazing. So if you guys like this video, make sure you like, share and subscribe to Tom Talks Rubbish. Follow me on Twitter at Tom Talks Rubbish. Follow bodyslam.net on YouTube and Twitter for my show with Cassidy Haynes, the Wrestle Watch podcast, and follow the Wrestle Watch podcast on Twitter to vote each match that we're going to watch each week. And I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.